Tyler, the Creator, dropped his 8th studio album, Chromakopia, a couple weeks ago. And like pretty much all of his recent projects, it was well received. It got good reviews from outlets like Pitchfork and Fantano, and commercially it did even better. It easily cruised to #1 with a little under 300,000 units sold in its first week, which almost doubled Tyler's previous first week record. It was the biggest hip-hop album debut on Spotify this year. It seemed like the world stopped to hear Tyler out. And on the outside, the success might seem even crazier, given that the album dropped only 12 days after it was first announced. There was no prolonged rollout, no viral TikTok sound to spread the message, no stream appearances with Kai Cenat or Aiden Ross. These are all things that other artists have to beg for in 2024 to cut through and grab the attention of the audience, for a few reasons. There are so many other artists now, and beyond that, you have to compete for a spot in the algorithm with everything else going on in the world, literally everything. It seems like Tyler doesn't need things like that, because for some reason, the world is always prepared to hear him out. It makes sense on the surface. Tyler is an artist who, even early on in his career, has been very topical and particular in his writing. But he's not the only artist with a message. There's just something about his messages that people seem excited to receive. Even before the album came out, people online were writing think pieces about what they thought it would be about, based on a cover and a trailer. They literally cannot wait to listen to what Tyler has to say, and it's especially crazy because it comes at a time when artists are having trouble finding people to listen to them with some intent. This kind of reputation, this level of respect, it doesn't just come by accident. Sure, some of it is because of Tyler's almost robotic consistency, releasing a project every 2 years from 2009 to 2021, at a much more constant rate than pretty much any other A-list artist. But a lot of it is due to intentional decisions that Tyler makes to control the narrative around him and his releases. So today I want to dive into some very specific decisions that Tyler made that created the environment that allowed the album to succeed. As much as he talks about just making good music and focusing on world building, the truth is, after he does all that, he makes a lot of deliberate and strategic choices outside of the studio and off the music video set that help push his reach to the next level. So I'm going to dive into those so we can really understand why Chromakopia has been such a smash hit. But before we get into all that, if you like videos on music like this one, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. I drop a video every week, and if you want to see them early, go to my Instagram, HADJI, throw me a follow, and join my broadcast channel. I post all my videos in that channel one day early, for free. Also, I've got a song coming out called Like Water featuring Kenny Can Fly and Black Sam. If you're watching this video the day it comes out, it drops at midnight. If you're watching this later, it's already out. But for those who are watching it the day of, I put the unlisted video link in the description so you can check it out a little bit early because I appreciate you guys. Alright, back to the video. The press run has evolved a lot over the last few decades. Before the internet became the main form of music consumption, artists had to turn their albums in weeks and months ahead of time, and do all their interviews with print magazines and publications months in advance to give the fans like little crumbs of what was coming. They'd likely release some singles a few months ahead of time so that people could get a taste of what it was going to sound like. But things have changed so much since digital became the #1 way to listen to music. Some artists surprise drop their albums, with little to no runway of an announcement. Some hide features for a little while to not spoil the first listen, and some keep updating their albums after they drop like a patch to a video game. Tyler first announced Chromakopia 12 days before it came out, with a trailer and a snippet of a song, and then he dropped a single 1 week before the album. It's easy to say that the whole rollout was 12 days long, but that's actually not the case. Let me explain. In reality, Tyler's rollout began on August 14th when he sat down with Maverick Carter for a 26-minute interview on YouTube. It had a ton of good sound bites, quotables, and controversial moments. At no point in the interview did he actually announce an album. Instead, it was received as this kind of state of union of sorts from an artist who's kind of becoming an elder statesman in music, and one who usually has something to say, no matter how people are going to feel about it. And so of course, the interview had a couple sound bites that went viral. But what's interesting to me is how much those sound bites correlate directly to what he's talking about on Chromakopia. For example, probably the most viral moment from that interview was when he talked about white rappers who he felt like were making a mockery of the hip-hop genre. He never said anybody's name, but most people took it to be about the rapper Ian. I actually made a whole video about this, and so did pretty much every other person who does music commentary on YouTube. A Tyler, the Creator interview is like Christmas for people like us. But let's hear exactly what he said.
This white kid, regular Caucasian man, and he's mocking Future and Gucci Mane rap music, and people are this shit hard. It's not even satire. It's I'm just joking, I'm just mocking it, but I'm no, you can't do. And I hold rap music so close to my heart because it changed my life and everyone's life around me, and I'm a nerd about this shit. This is like weird, and I'm looking at it, and something about it like don't even sit well with me in comparison to someone like a Mac Miller or Eminem, who it didn't seem like they was mocking it. They had a genuine love for it, and they were still just being,
for sure.
And it's interesting because one of the tracks on Chromakopia, Thought I Was Dead, talks about this exact topic. White boys mocking this shit and y'all mad at me, y'all can suck my dick. I suppose it's possible that he went back and added that line after the interview, especially because it's just one line and it's not like the whole song's topic is about that. If I'm playing like devil's advocate or whatever, I guess it could have been recorded after the interview. Do I think so? Probably not. And the same can't be said for some of the other things he talked about in the interview. Like when he talks about paranoia and fans getting too close to him in public and trying to learn everything there is to learn about his life.
Kid, the internet crazy, bro, these kids hack everything and like, listen to the music. They want to know who your sister is and like what you ate for dinner. Like, mind your fucking business. Go the outside and listen to the damn art or the music. Like,
The lead single for the album, Noid, is about the exact same thing. And unlike Thought I Was Dead, it's not just like one line, it's the whole song. No cameras out, please. I want to eat in peace. Don't want to take pictures with you. You sing along, but you don't know me. And they want to know where I close my eyes at. I keep my eyes wide. There is no chance that Tyler didn't write that song before he did the interview. And by sitting down with Maverick Carter, he primed his fans to receive these topics and explained his head state before they even knew he had an album coming out. While in the moment it didn't seem like he was promoting something, he knew that he was. This is aligned with a trend that I've noticed more and more in the music industry and also just in life in general. People are sick of being sold to and advertised to. And so in response, advertisements are trying to be more and more covert. In music, we see this phenomenon on Twitter a lot, where a lot of posts from popular accounts are actually seeded or paid for so that they talk about particular artists. I can tell you as an artist, this is 100% a real practice. I'm not here to mess up anybody's bag. I'm not here to say that it's a bad thing that needs to stop. My tone is neutral. But in general, it's just a way more common thing than a lot of fans might realize. And it's not just on Twitter. Many podcasts will do covert ads where they talk about a particular product in the middle of what seems like a natural conversation. But when they start going on a tangent about this product, like it could be paid marketing. I'm not saying it always is, but it could be. Also, sometimes on certain podcasts, the guests are actually paying to appear in the first place so that they can advertise whatever it is they're advertising. And of course, this has been happening in movies and TV shows forever, where you see them use a specific phone brand or drink a particular drink. Ads are everywhere. Sometimes it feels like living in 2024 is just like walking through a proverbial Times Square with billboards at every turn. The artist press run is a tried and true form of advertisement. In the old days, it was the Breakfast Club interview. I mean, it still is, but now there's like these YouTube channels and streams, 20 versus 1 videos, podcast appearances. But people might tune out or skip an episode of their favorite show if they get the feeling that they're just being advertised to or plugged or sold to. They want to hear their favorite podcasters talk. They don't want to hear you talk about your album the whole time. This is why what Tyler did is so smart. He did talk about his album, but without anybody realizing. You can even see people coming back to the comments on that interview video after Chromakopia came out and saying, oh, I see why he was talking about all this. He was able to prime a larger audience, beyond just his fans, due to the virality of the topics, for the conversation that he would drive with his project that was coming shortly after. Conversations about celebrity, about the place of white rappers in hip hop, conversations about getting a little bit older and trying to figure out your place. This is really strategic, and it puts the audience in a place to receive the music, with the topics already ping-ponging around in their heads. It's one thing to hear the idea that Tyler is sick of fans coming up to him in public and breaching his privacy. That's not like a super new thing for artists to say, by the way, so if an artist dropped a song about that, you'd be like, oh, yeah, true. But to know that about him and then go into this really well-crafted song with a whole aesthetic and a mask and a really great video like Noid, that expresses that emotion in such a really cool way, and also expounds on it in ways that he didn't necessarily in the interview. It makes the song hit a lot harder, at least to me. The second way that Tyler set up his audience to really listen to him was by dropping on a Monday instead of a Friday like most mainstream artists do. It's been the norm for a little under a decade now for new albums and new singles to drop on Fridays. Although if anyone's in their Unk era like me, you might remember when it was Tuesday. I remember staying up to download My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy on like a Monday night. It was a school night. It was Beyonce's surprise dropped self-titled album in 2013 that prompted the industry to set up Friday as a global day for releases, 2 years later in 2015. Beyonce's reasoning made sense at the time. For one, movies have always released on Fridays, at least for a long time, as long as I can remember. And her self-titled album was a visual album, so you can see the parallel there. But the journalist Taylor Crumpton went a little deeper about that with MTV in 2023. She loves a Friday. She is wanting her fans to go out and dance. She wants you to be active. You cannot get into the totality of Renaissance if you're also thinking about what you have to wake up and do in the morning. Friday means I can do this all by myself and I can still do all this promotion with my full reign and autonomy. So it makes sense on the surface for everybody to release on Fridays, right? Everyone's in a good mood on Friday. You're about to have the weekend off, hopefully, and your favorite artist drops. You can go out with your friends and talk about that new album. But the issue is that if every single person drops on Friday, you're competing for attention against literally everyone, all on the same day. And in the era of the surprise drop, you don't know if one of those everyone's is gonna be Kendrick Lamar or Drake or something, you know? And not only are you competing with other musicians, but you're just competing with life in general. Think about everything else you wanna do on the weekends. Hang out with your loved ones, go to parties, see your friends, do some chores, catch up on whatever it is you want in your life. What if a big movie comes out? You know, it's a crowded space. This is why independent artists often release on days that aren't Fridays. They might just drop on a Wednesday like I tend to do. And the issues with the Friday releases run even deeper when you start to think about all the people who are behind the curtain. If you're an artist signed to a major label, then you have employees at the label who work on your marketing strategies, your art direction. They work on telling the playlists and the DSPs like Spotify, like, yo, put this song on a playlist. If every artist is dropping on the same day, then those employees are all stretched really thin. Ari Lennox, an R&B singer who's signed to Interscope through J. Cole's Dreamville label, and makes really great music by the way, recently talked on Instagram for like 18 minutes about her frustrations with a recent release. Well, most of it wasn't about the specific Friday thing. She did talk about the fact that when the song comes out on a Friday, and then you can't reach all the employees who worked on it because it's a weekend. What if something goes wrong with the release or there's like a really pressing issue? What if it's the opposite and you want to throw some fire on it and spend some money on the marketing, but like everybody's out of office? You gotta wait 2 whole days to respect people's weekends. And if you're not a big priority, you might not even be able to tell them on Friday because they're too busy working on Kendrick's drop. So it's a tough spot to find yourself in. And it's entirely restricted to the fact that it was deemed best to release on Friday. If you think about a global release day, it made a lot more sense back when people had to go to Best Buy or Target and physically buy CDs to get new music. Because then, you know, making only one trip was probably ideal. But now, what difference does it make on the internet if something goes live on a different day? And just like how Tyler prepared his audience for the topics that he discussed on Chromakopia, he also prepared them for an off-day release in an interview with Nardwuar last year in 2023. I think we should put music out again on Tuesdays instead of Fridays. My reasoning is, I know people think because of the weekend, they can listen to stuff and streams go up. And the streaming people are like, oh, streams go up on the weekend. But I think it's a lot of passive listening at parties. Or people get the time to go to the gym, so they're not really listening. People on the weekend, they want to chill and hang out, so they're not really listening. But I think if you put it out during the week, man, that commute to work or that commute to school, just whatever that is, you really have that hour or 30 minutes to really dive and really listen. Because, you know, once that's over, you got to get to work. I think when that time is shorter, kind of like with procrastination, you get more done, even with listening. Tyler must have workshopped this idea a bit over the last year, because instead of releasing on Tuesday like he said in that interview, he ended up releasing on a Monday. Now maybe he just said Tuesday in the moment because that's just the way that it used to be and he remembers that. But also for people who care about first week sales, they're reported from Friday to Thursday, which means that for Tyler, even though by not dropping on a Friday he already theoretically punted away that whole weekend of sales, doing Monday instead of Tuesday allows him to still get one of those days back. He didn't just drop Monday at midnight though. He deliberately picked 6 a.m. on Monday. He actually talked about this with Nardwuar too. To work on an album for so long and put so much energy into it, and for it to be released at midnight, and I'm talking about America because this is where I'm from, to release it at midnight just seems disrespectful. People are asleep on the East Coast for the most part, and people are going to sleep on the West. That's when you decide to release music. I think it coming out in the morning would just make more sense. I'm on the same page as him with this. I work as a teacher right now, which means I have to get up pretty early. And so on Thursday night, like I'm probably not awake at midnight. And that means that when my own songs come out, like I'm also probably not awake, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense. There really is no reason to be beholden to the Friday release unless it's your label that's telling you to do it. And so I think I foresee some other artists moving their releases like this, whether it's the day or the time that it comes out. Either way, this was an intentional move for Tyler because he felt like it would lead to more active listening. And based on the first week numbers, the discourse, and the general reaction, I think he was right. But what adds a layer of success to the celebration cake is the fact that his fans understood exactly why he made that move. In today's music climate, where for some reason fans seem to care about artists' first week sales, so many moves are made by artists just maximize those and squeeze as much as they can out of them, even sometimes to the detriment of the listener. The Justin Bieber Yummy post is probably like the worst example of this, but there are so many other things like that. In the late 2010s, there was like the crazy bundle era where like Travis Scott was selling you like a motorcycle helmet so that he can sell you an album unit. And while they did put some rules on bundles to kind of change that, now there are all sorts of other like streaming gambits, like dropping deluxe versions with extra songs like halfway into the next week to boost the first week sales, or selling 8 different covers of your physical album so that your most diehard fans buy 8 copies instead of 1, or dropping remix albums that push the whole thing, or so on and so on. So I think some people probably saw it as refreshing, that Tyler was just like, hey, I want you to listen to this album with intent, even if that means I'm sacrificing some of my first week sales for that to happen. It contributes to the attitude that people had going into that album. Like, damn, no gimmicks, no nothing, just music. And you really want me to listen to this, so I will. It's a little more complicated than that though, because Tyler's in a position to sacrifice some of that streaming data because he knows that his fans will buy physical products from him. Of those almost 300,000 first week sales for Chromakopia, according to XXL, 66,000 of them were vinyl sales. Not every artist has that kind of fan base, or has like an A1 merch game like Tyler does. I mean, even calling it merch is kind of disrespectful because Tyler's like designing for Louis Vuitton and I saw one of my students in my high school that I work at wearing a Chromakopia shirt this week, so it's got some outreach. People want to wear his merch. So sometimes moving a few units like that can be more beneficial than playing the streaming game. And by previewing the topics of the album in a covert but honest way, he sidestepped many of the problems that come with aggressive advertising and the feeling of being sold to as a fan, by outlining exactly how he wanted the album to be consumed, and in a way that put the art first and not the sales first. He invited fans to actually actively listen. Tyler is not the only artist who deserves an active listen, but because he constantly prioritizes it and pushes for it and cultivates it, he's more likely to get it than a lot of other artists, because it's a part of his narrative. And it makes sense that an artist like Tyler the Creator would try so hard to control his narrative. He has skeletons in his closet just like any other artist. He said some things on previous albums that have gotten him banned from entire countries. But as somebody who's been working on his narrative for years, he actually got out in front of that in a song. The track Manifesto from his last album, Call Me If You Get Lost, talking about how he doesn't hide his past, but at the same time apologizing to people like Selena Gomez for maybe saying some out-of-pocket stuff about them when he was younger. Even in that interview with Maverick Carter, he made the mature move of apologizing to Eminem, somebody that has actually called him the F-bomb on a track before. And it was completely unprompted for Tyler to apologize in that moment. When Tyler starts to make more mature music, he also starts carrying himself with that same energy in public. And that really helps push the narrative that this guy is growing up in front of us, which is a really important part of his story. So it's just another example of showing how masterful this dude is at controlling how people perceive him. And it's really important to do that because there are so many examples of the power of the narrative in a negative way. When we talk about artists who are perceived to have fallen off, there are so many video essays on this platform about rappers who fell off. And do you honestly think that all of those rappers' new music is like bad, or that they just like forgot how to make good music? Think of like Meek Mill, for example, because he's now known for his social media antics or his relationship with Diddy. That's kind of all you see in his mentions. It's all you see people talk about him for. Nobody really mentions that he's still dropping music that's actually good. Let's put it this way. If you liked Meek Mill's music in the 2010s and you heard the music that Meek Mill put out in 2024, in theory, you would like it too. It's still the same quality to me, but the narrative is that Meek Mill fell off. Meek Mill does bunny hops. Roddy Ricch is another example of an artist that has like paid YouTubers rent from them making videos like rappers who fell off, Roddy Ricch. They talk about his snippets not being received well, or people leaving his IG live, or all these like little petty things. He dropped a song this year called Survivor's Remorse that is really good. In both of these cases, fans aren't really like listening or evaluating what the artist is dropping. They're not really giving them a chance to dig themselves out of where they are. That's because the narrative that they fell off is stronger than anything that they're doing to counter it. And narrative is so important in so many aspects of our lives as well, even outside of music. Think about the US presidential election, and I know everybody's probably sick of talking about it, or you're not even from America in the first place and you're watching this, so like, I'll try not to make it too political, I'll try to keep this section short, but I think it's such a good example. Both candidates campaigned on narrative more than actual policy. A huge chunk of the voter base on both sides couldn't tell you what the concrete policies of their favorite candidate were. I'm guilty of it too. I voted for Kamala Harris. I couldn't tell you some of the shit she stands for. And in Trump's case, at least from what I've seen, because the algorithm definitely knows that I'm like a left-wing guy, so I get a lot of examples of dumb people on the other side. But I saw examples of his voter base like fundamentally misunderstanding how the tariff that he's proposing works. And so each of them were kind of trying to sell a narrative. Trump's obviously is to make America great again. Kamala Harris is like, I'm not Donald Trump. That was pretty much what they were up there saying to each other and saying to us. That doesn't mean that they don't have actual policies. It just means that if they want to win people over, it's better to not even talk about the policies and to talk about this narrative that you're trying to cultivate. They have whole teams of people who are paid to create an image around them so that people want to vote for them. It doesn't even necessarily have to align with reality. And this extends beyond the United States and beyond politics, but use this to really think about the value of a narrative. There was also a tweet from the artist Russ about Tyler that I thought was kind of interesting. Tyler is an example at what happens if you super serve your niche and DGAF what the market is doing. Cheers to staying true to your taste. Tyler knows he has a reputation to be the music nerd, the intense listener. The track 6 on the HADJI album changed my life in 1999 when I was in a pizza place in Ladera, California, and I heard the chord movement with the diminished 7 and it opened my brain. They know he's that guy. And so he attempts to cultivate an audience that listens to music the way that he does. He talks right to them and he makes decisions around promoting and releasing to build that world out. That's why Tyler is able to succeed and have so much longevity and this like kind of slow but steady growth in his career that it's really hard to find another artist who has a similar path, especially one without an obvious crossover hit or like somebody who's not at least like kind of deliberately trying to make music that can reach more people. Tyler did do that when he stopped like, rapping about killing people, but still, he would have a long way to go like fully mainstream from where he is now. The first week Chromakopia numbers seemed to surprise a lot of people, leading to a lot of tired discussion about whether or not Tyler the Creator is in the big 3 or not. I mean, I can't talk. I made a video about the big 3, although I don't know how well that's aged. So I hope this video helps pull the curtain back a little bit on how he's so good at cultivating that audience. Let me know what you want me to cover next. Peace.